Greetings, everyone. I'm Dr. Betty Speaks, a power voice for those who are silenced by traumatic situations throughout their life journey. We are here again on Overcoming Battles, and I thank you for tuning in once again to this international motivational plus inspirational show that is filled with wisdom that will awaken your hope, ambition, faith, and inner strength, plus cover a variety of genuine life-changing topics designed to encourage listeners worldwide with the knowledge that strength doesn't come from what you can do, it comes from overcoming the things you once thought you couldn't. So thank you for tuning in with us today. And today I have a phenomenal young lady that is a global world changer. That's right, global. Not only is she making a difference here in the United States, but she's making a difference worldwide. She is a phenomenal educator. When I say phenomenal, I mean phenomenal. And I have such a heart for her. She has an amazing family. She's an amazing grandmother. I get to peek in on a lot of things that she's doing behind the scenes. So I'm not going to hold you up too much longer, but I do want her to introduce who she is and what are some of the amazing things that she's not only doing for her community, but for the world. Dr. Luster, are you there?
I'm here, and I'm very glad to be here. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Adria Luster. I am an educator, a mother, a grandmother, a sister, a friend, and an advocate for women to take care of themselves. That's my biggest platform, is trying to make sure that we're knowledgeable of the fact that self-love is the biggest love that we can give to each other.
That is so amazing. And I love the fact that she says she's an advocate of women because we as women, she said, take care of yourselves. We oftentimes we take care of ourselves on the outside. We want to make sure we look so pretty on the outside, but there's some things that I'm sure Dr. Luster is talking about on the inside as well. And this month happens to be Cancer Awareness a month. I say cancer, but is primarily we were talking about is people know of one cancer because it's like that prominent cancer that most females get, but there are hundreds of other cancers that are out there as well. And I wanted her to share her story. We were just talking about our story, and life hits us hard so often. I tell you that if you are on a life journey, especially if it's a successful life journey, get ready because somewhere along that life, you're going to get hit. And you're going to get hit hard, and you're going to want to know how to recover from that hit. And that's what we're here for today. We want to help you recover from some of the hits and the blows that you may encounter in life. So I want Dr. Luster to share with you one of her life hits.
Exactly. I first do want to say that no matter who you are, every life has peaks and valleys. And we, of course, we're able to handle those peaks, but when we hit those valleys, sometimes it's hard to summon the strength to keep moving. For myself personally, I had a lot of peaks, but I also had a lot of valleys in my life. And one of the things that was really surprising to me is before I was even diagnosed with my illness, I had worked on my dissertation speaking to prominent female superintendents in the area of education. And I interviewed about 10 female superintendents, and I set out on that journey because I wanted to know, are there certain characteristics of women that overcome obstacles and aspire to leadership and, are at the top of their game, as people say. And after completing my interviews, and this was amongst women of various races, of various ages, even of serving various districts, some very large, some very small and rural. one of the things that surprised me was that while the majority of them had experienced early leadership, they also acknowledged that they fought with issues with self-limitation, meaning that they strive to put themselves first. A lot of them shared that they had opportunities to advance, but instead decided, well, I don't know how I'll handle it if people say this about me. Or, I remember one person saying, my mother-in-law said I work too much as is, and me having a child at home, even though my child's a teenager, she would criticize me for being in such a high area of leadership. And so I found that to be kind of disappointing, because I said, these are women that someone would look at from the outside and say, wow, they've got it all. They're educated, they have, wonderful positions. People look up and admire them. But even they fought with self-limitation, self-care, putting themselves first. So a few years later, I encountered that same scenario within myself. I had a friend that was a trainer, and January, New Year, everybody has resolutions, and they're like, hey, I'm gonna hit the gym. And she and I were working together, and I said, I got this little knot on my breast. I thought it was a spider bite, but it's just a little knot, it won't go away. And I'll never forget, she looked at me, she said, well, you need to get that checked, because that could be something. And I said, okay. And I was working in an urban school district with a lot of at-risk children. And one of the things that we as women, we're nurturers. We want to love, we want to help everyone. But what comes with that also is sometimes as a nurturer, you neglect yourself. And I know myself, in my mind, when she said it to me, I said, well, it's January, we got high stakes testing coming, and I got to work with these kids because, I got to make sure that I'm doing my part, so that we don't have more statistics in, our community. And I kept striving to work with them. And I remember her coming back, we had spring break. She said, okay, spring break's coming. Go ahead and go to the doctor. Oh, girl, okay, I'll get to it, but I got to do graduation, and I got the kids to graduate. And I just kept neglecting. And finally, when we started the next school year, believe it or not, she came to me and she said, did you ever go to the doctor? So this started in January, but now it's August. And I said, no. She said, okay, look, you're going to go to the doctor. I'm going to call your husband and make you go. And by now, that little bump had kind of swelled a little bit. And so I said, okay, maybe she's right, because this bump hasn't gone away. And I went to the doctor. I had the biopsy. They looked, and I remember them coming back to me a couple of weeks later and telling me, you have cancer. And it was the strangest moment, because, my husband and I, he happened to be present with me, because I said, come in here, let's get this news. This ain't nothing. They're going to give me some cream to, make this bump go away. And we're going to go to dinner afterwards. And he teases me all the time, because I remember telling the doctor, she kept talking, and I said, stop. Just be quiet. And I told him later, I said, when we were kids, you watched the Charlie Brown cartoon, how the teacher goes, wah, 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 wah. That's really what her voice sounded like to me, because all I heard was, you have cancer. And my next questions were, where am I going to live? And to have someone say to you, I don't know. I can't answer that question. We've got to run more tests. And in those 2 weeks since that, they ran a barrage of tests, but just that uncertainty really made me reflect on my life. And I had a lot of questions, and I said, what if I had come in January? Would things have been different? What if I had just put myself first instead of focusing on, these children? And I love my job and I love helping children, but what if I had just thought about me? Trying to be superwoman and save everyone else. But what if I had just thought about me? And that question kind of hung over my head. And so I went through the treatment, and what really startled me was when I had the tumor removed, which was less than 30 days after the diagnosis. I was very quick with saying, hey, let's get it on. And I had the tumor removed, and I remember the doctor had wanted to put it off. And I said, no, let's get on with it. And she came back to me after the surgery, and she said, I'm so glad that I listened to you and we went ahead with your surgery, because your tumor had pretty much almost doubled in size within 30 days from when we first diagnosed you.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that with it being so aggressive, she was surprised. She told me that I was in probably less than 5% of those that have that type of diagnosis, where it's stage 2, almost stage 3, and it hadn't spread. And I joke because when I was a younger, about 9, all my friends were flat chested. Here I started popping out, and I just, my mother would have to get on me and say, "Hey, you got to wear a bra." And I'm like, "No, I want to run out in the street and play kickball." And so, I remember when I was diagnosed, the first thing I said was, "Well, y'all can't cut off one and not cut off the other, and I'll be lopsided. What we going to do?" I haven't really seen my feet since I was about 15, and I joked about it, but the doctor even said, she said, "But you being such a, full-breasted woman, that kind of saved you, because it gave some cushion for the tumor to keep it from spreading in your system." Yes. And what's really sad about it is that when I received my diagnosis the year before in the previous school I had been, there were 5 other individuals in that one school building. You're talking about a staff of less than 100 people, 5 individuals that were diagnosed with cancer. Okay. And it wasn't all breast cancer. One person actually, like me, it had started as breast cancer, but she had so much pressure to come to work like I did, that she put off her treatment, put off doing what she needed to do. It spread, and while she fought for a few years, she ended up passing away. And it was very hurtful to me because she and I had worked very closely for a number of years. But afterwards, I did some research, and I started to look, going back to, my studies previously, and I said, is there a connection with women in education or women in service positions and cancer diagnosis? And I found that there was. And one of the biggest connections was the fact that we neglect our own health. One of the biggest connections with women of color and their diagnosis, and whether or not their mortality rate has to deal with the fact that they often wait to seek help until it has gone too late, until they're in the later stages. And so I kind of took that experience of my own, and I decided, well, if I can help someone else, avoid getting to where you're off work I was off work for about 6 or 8 months. Luckily, I had enough sick time saved up, but everyone might not be in that position. But going through the process of 4.5 months of chemotherapy, another 8 weeks of radiation, which to me was extremely painful, multiple medications. If I could just avoid someone having to go through that, and maybe going to the doctor when they initially notice something's wrong, I feel like I've done something to help someone. And so that's kind of been my platform, because I know that not only women, but women of color, oftentimes, we're taught to care for everyone else and to kind of place ourselves last. And one thing you said early, Betty, was you're right. Oftentimes we'll on the outside make sure that we're looking great, no matter what your size. Even women that, are considered full figured like myself, we'll make sure that we can dress sharp and have on the nicest clothes. But when it comes to the inside, your health, looking at, taking care of you first, oftentimes that is an issue for us. And that's something that we really need to address.
Girl, I need to pass around the collection plate. You have given us some nuggets today, and I love the fact that you are an advocate for us women in general. And do you have a daughter, Dr. Luster?
Yes, I have 2.
That's right. You have 2 daughters. I remember singing happy birthday to one. Yeah. It looks like a mini you, actually.
Yes. I have 2 daughters.
Yes.
And I'm glad that with my experience, they're learning some things that in my generation we weren't taught. That hey, I come first. I don't have to compromise. And like I said, self-care. People tend to think self-care is, oh, I go and get a pedicure, or oh, I go and get a massage. But self-care is bigger than that, because self-care also involves your emotional care. It involves having the courage to say, I'm not comfortable with this situation. I want to seek another option. I'm not feeling fulfilled in this relationship. I want to seek another option. If you look back at previous generations, you know, our grandmothers and great grandmothers, oftentimes they might have found themselves in situations where they didn't feel they were always respected and said, well, you know, that's my husband. And, you know, we've been married for 50 years and, you know, okay, he's got some outside children out there or whatever, but, you know, that's my husband. But I'm glad to see that my daughters are learning, and a lot of the young ladies in this generation are learning that self-care means that you can put yourself first and you can stand up and say, you know, I demand some self-respect. I demand some self recognition, you know, just some acknowledgement. I think that is very important.
Oh, girl, I'm telling you, you are absolutely amazing. And I love the fact that you are a mom and you're talking about your daughters and how they are, how you are setting the example for them and, and how it's okay because just by listening to you, I can tell that the conversation, you mentioned the word limited earlier. Your conversations with your daughter has no filters. You know, they can say, no, I feel that. Let's talk about that. Let me hear that from you for a second.
Well, I think that one thing that, and again, one of the benefits, I guess, of our generation, you know, you and I talked earlier about Oprah Winfrey. One of the things that I always admired about Oprah Winfrey, and I tell my kids, I remember her coming on when I was in college. This was before the internet, okay? And we had a cafeteria hall, and when her show would come on, we would schedule our classes to where we could sit and eat lunch and you know, watch her show. But one of the things that made her so groundbreaking was that she took those conversations, you know, back in the day, you used to hear the phrase, what goes on in this house stays in this house. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but a
Yes.
lot of people would say that. But she took those conversations and brought them to the forefront to where people felt open, sharing and discussing some of those things that may have been harmful to them or that may have been detrimental or they were maybe uncomfortable with. And now, of course, you can turn on television, on talk shows, and you see people sharing certain things, you know, to help others to promote their growth. But at the time when it first started with her, that was uncommon. And so one of the benefits of that is that people do feel more open to opening up. You know, you can have that relationship where you can talk about, you know, I overcame this. You know, I share with my daughters. And one thing that I pride myself on is, you know, I divorced from my children are a result of a blended family. My husband and I, when we got together, he had a son and a daughter, and I had a son and a daughter, and we've been married for over 20 years. But my own children, even though they were very young when I divorced their father, one thing that I like to share with them is that marriage is not a sentence. You know, if you feel like this is not working for me or this relationship or we have some flaws, then, you know, maybe we can separate and still be a better person than keeping the children in a toxic environment. And so that's one thing. I also share with my own children that from that divorce, I myself sought out just therapy, just having someone to talk to. That's another word that in our community, and when I say our community, I mean the Black community, you know, people say, oh, just go to church and pray. Prayer is good. Don't get me wrong, prayer is good, but prayer with a therapist is wonderful. You know, prayer is good, but prayer with a doctor is wonderful. You know, I know that, you know, I believe in God, and I would have, you know, loved to have prayed and my cancer immediately went away. However, I needed the intervention of a medical doctor.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have suffered traumas or we've gone through experiences where you need the intervention of a doctor of psychiatry or psychology to help you to work through those issues. And so that's one thing that I have advocated to my children is that there's nothing wrong with seeking help. It's not a weakness. And again, once you are able to seek that help, just like with my cancer, once I was able to work through that treatment and heal my body, then I open up the horizon for other things and other experiences that I can have. The same with mental health. Once you're able to work through that, you open yourself up to other experiences that can enrich your life. And by not doing that, you are limiting yourself, because you know that trauma and those issues, sometimes it's like a chain holding you back. And that weight, when you release it, you're able to grow and be fruitful. Me even talking to you is something before my diagnosis I never would have done.
Wow.
Not to say that I was shy, but just to think, oh, you know, I don't know, you know, and just working with, you know, our mutual friend, Dr. Ruben West, and him helping to show me, you've got a message you can share. You know, it's so easy to go through something and say, oh, I'm so embarrassed because, you know, I went through cancer and it, you know, took away my hair and took away this and that. And, you know, I got scars on my body and, you know, I want to be embarrassed about it. But for someone to say to you, you know, you can take that and you can share it and maybe help someone. And I've actually shared and had people come up to me afterwards, like crying tears, or, you know, hugging me and just saying thank you, or, you know, coming back, you know, I just went through treatment and I thought no one would understand. So that's the good part of it. You know, just knowing that from your experience, by sharing with someone else, you can help them. You can help them to grow. You can give them knowledge. You can pass on something that they can use to help someone else. And that's really my purpose. Just for others to learn. Don't be like me and keep saying, oh, you know, everybody's more important than me, because that could have honestly had me on my deathbed. If I had waited till, you know, maybe another 90 days, I might not be here talking to you. And to look at that and to say to myself, wow, this all started really just from me neglecting myself. You know, that's a bitter pill to swallow, but it is one that helps you to grow and to acknowledge, this is my limitation, but I won't let it limit me anymore.
Girl, what am I gonna do with you? What am I gonna do with you? I love it. I love all of it. And I know you'll be back. I know this is going to like blow the radars open for, I want more of Dr. Luster. Yes. If her limitations allow it, you know, I had to beg for her. It's like I'm listening to you like, yeah, that's what I went through yesterday. Because I was like, that's the perfect time to speak with her. But this is good. This is so good, and it helps me too, because you know, I listened to you as you said that when the doctor was talking to you, and you and I talked about this too. I thought it was just me, and that's how our tribe is, because we're involved in a new tribe now. We've added on. You know, we were going in this direction with our life, and all of a sudden, wham, we got hit with something, and now we're like, all right, y'all come along too then. So now we got this part, and then there are those that are just finding out yesterday. There are some people that just found out this past week that they have cancer. Because I was looking at the statics on American Cancer Society's website of like millions of people find out daily that they have cancer. But had they taken that self-care that you were talking about, they taken that little, they thought it was like, I was in, my husband and I were in North Dakota, and something bit me. I had no clue what it was, but my leg swelled up, and I kept complaining, honey, look at my leg. And he's like, what bit you? So I put on my Facebook that who would believe that I'm in North Dakota? And one person said, well, that's home for me. And I said, well, something is biting me here. Something bit me and my leg blew up, like it's swollen up. And he said, oh, they have buffalo gnats there. And I'm thinking, well, if it was a buffalo gnat, don't you think I would have seen it? You know, because buffaloes are huge. But the fact is, if we don't get those things checked out, to see what it, you know, what was that bit me? And it just so happened that we were at the hospital, and the lady confirmed, like, yeah, looks like you got hit by a buffalo gnat. But I know gnats are small, but if you say it's a buffalo gnat,
yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yes, yes. So even the bottom line is that even if when you notice something, what was the senator's name that said if you see something, say something? He just yeah. So when you see something, say something for the, you know, that has a lot of meanings. And I thank God for you to have a girlfriend that was so concerned for your
Yeah,
safety.
yeah.
And
More
she
concerned for me than I was for myself. Isn't that something?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I love the fact that you said if you don't say something, I'm telling your husband,
She did.
obviously.
She did, and she would have. She would have. But yeah, but that's kind of what pushed me. And even then, I grudgingly, oh, okay, whatever. So yeah, being told that I had cancer, it was shocking because I wasn't expecting that at all. And I know a lot of times you do. And I'm not saying that a person should run to the hospital every time they feel something. But what I'm saying is that I knew that there was something wrong,
Right.
and I just didn't want to slow down enough to acknowledge it. I didn't want to stop. And the sad thing was that by not doing that, it was almost like God kind of slowed me down completely
Mm-hmm.
um, for 6 months. I joked with people when the pandemic first started and everybody's just having a fit. And I said something to my husband, and I even posted about it on Facebook because he said to me, well, you and I went through this when you had your diagnosis, because at the time he had been laid off from work. And when I got the diagnosis, like a week or two later, I said to him, well, do you think you could just kind of stay home to make sure I'm okay? And so he found a little part-time something close to me, but he pretty much was my caretaker.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said to me, you were pretty much in the house, for the most part, for about 4 or 5 months. And I said, you know what, you're right. And I said, but now I'm in the house and I'm healthy. And, I can do things. I can go out for walks and I can be, in certain areas where before I had to stay very sheltered because of the chemotherapy and my immune system. And so I said to him, it's all about perspective. Having that perspective kind of puts this whole quarantine that we're having now due to COVID, I'm in a different mindset with that. And not to say that it's a great thing, but sometimes when you just shift your mindset, it helps. And, the main thing that I just try to stress is if you feel something's not right, don't ignore it. Don't think that, oh, I'm going to brush it off, it'll go away. Put yourself first. And then a lot of times with us, especially mothers, if your child comes to you and says something's wrong, you'll break your neck to get them to the ER to make sure they're okay. So, why not have that same love and care for yourself? Because honestly, if you're not here to care for them, they're going to suffer more. And I think sometimes we don't think about it in that way, but that's something that we really have to consider.
I love it. You have been absolutely amazing. And
Mhm.
I have to let everyone know if you want to get in touch with Dr. Luster, she's on social media and you have books out on Amazon too, right?
Yes, I do. I have books on Amazon. I also have my own website where I have the various publications. My website is www.adrialuster, Luster, like shiny, luster.com. That's my website, and I have my books available there. I have a co-authored a couple of books where I talk about this experience and self-love. And I also have recently co-authored a book titled Wife Life 101. And it actually was just released on Monday. And so that book is also available or will be available on my website. And in that publication, I talk about being married for the second time, second time around. That was my contribution to it. But really also sharing with women that there can be life and love after divorce. Because sometimes for a lot of women, once they have a failed relationship, especially one that produces children, it's hard to recover from that. And so I share that experience as well.
I love it. I can see you having that own show, like a minute with Dr. Luster, or because of your commitment to so many things, and I can see you say, "Hey, let me give you a minute from Dr. Luster," or limit your conversations with Dr. Luster, or something.
I, I'll think about that.
Yeah.
But my goal is just to empower other women to be the
Yes.
best version of themselves that they can be. I'm still striving to be my best version, but my hope is that I can help someone else just to learn from some of my pitfalls and to be a better version, be a better person, and go out and help someone else.
Yes. And could you repeat your website just
Sure.
before, because I was
It's
sure.
no problem. So it's www.adrialuster.com.
Perfect. I'm
So
gonna
it's my first and last name.com, adrialuster.com.
love it. So I'm gonna make sure I advertise that as well, because you are I've loved you ever since I got to hear you speak in March, and you gave
Thank you.
that word that had like 7 letters.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I enjoyed that because our goal was to empower women and to help change lives. And I think that's very important. I really do.
Yes, and thank you for taking the time out for us today. I know I told you that it was going to be only a few moments, but I was ready to just turn on the fireplace and listen to you. There's another conversation that we're going to come back and do just for the ladies, and I would love to have you as one of the featured speakers for
Sure.
that event, because not only did you say you have daughters that you set the example for, you don't have a filter with them, they don't have a filter with you.
No.
And this is what moms need to know. You know, we have a lot of single parents, single moms that are raising their daughters, and daughters that think that they're raising themselves, you know. So they need to hear from successful women, successful parents such as yourself. And you have successful daughters too, because they're taking the time to listen to what you are saying to them and applying your learnings to their life at their current age. Wow.
Yes.
I feel that. I don't know that. I feel it.
It's true. Thank you.
Yes, yes. So thank you for your time. Again, this has been Dr. Luster, and as she said, she is www.adrialuster.com. That's how you can reach out to her. I'm sure she has that contact button out there that you can put in if you want more information from her. But definitely get all those books. She said she's been co-authors of books, and I know I've seen a book that she wrote the foreword to that I actually am excited to get my hands on. So you've been listening to Overcoming Battles. Remember that strength doesn't come from what you can do. It comes from overcoming the things that you once thought you couldn't. So you can do it. You can gird yourself up, even after hearing that Charlie Brown noise. You know. So
Definitely.
yeah, so thank you so much for tuning
Thank
in.
you.